everyone. Y'all are now tuned into another amazing episode of HipPodHedz. I am No Sage along with Novek, and we're fortunate to discuss our favorite hip hop moments. This is episode 43. And we actually just had Video Dave on the show, the last episode. He had some cool hip hop moments. Actually, Novek, I forgot to bring this up. He actually shot a music video with Method Man. So that was kind of a moment. And this little for
Wow,
our
really?
guests. Yeah, I got to share that with you. But this fun fact with our guest, or for our guests to know about, this dude that I had on the show last episode, he designed some like stitchwork hats, where it's kind of like a patchwork of fabric, and he would just cover up anything. He said he was just tired of wearing like Cubs hats, so he would just cover it up, right? And if y'all ever caught the latest Dancing with the Stars, Jason Mraz was actually wearing his hats in the training, like when they're like before the show. So that was kind of like a dope moment. But I digress. I got my two performance like master class here. I got Adam and Roberto. What's going on?
Get ready, man.
We appreciate you. We appreciate you.
I'm just ready to talk about hip hop at any moment.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank
And
you.
I'm the least ready to talk about hip hop at any moment. You know, like I'm a good listener to hip hop, but like talk about hip hop. I don't know why I'm invited. I'm just a Chicano from LA, you know.
I'm good with it. I'm good with it. I'm good with it.
I'm like an ex-punk rocker from Los Angeles. Like my favorite group when I was 12 years old was the Germs from LA, right? The Germs, the Circle Jerks, Chili Peppers, you know, like that was my vibe, right?
Bro, I mean, it's no accident you're here, because like Chili Peppers, they spit in bars, and I know Adam, aka MC Advizer, he knows all about the music hybrids and everything, the crossovers.
Well, fun fact, long story short, I have a life as an MC in a group that changed its name once, and in our second iteration, we actually sampled the Germs. I was very proud of that.
Get out!
No yeah.
For me, it was like, people talk about where they were when Kennedy died, right? For me, I know where I was when Darby Crash died.
Wow.
I was like 12 years old at St. Cyril Catholic School, and word went around, and we were all like super bummed,
That's crazy.
And then recently, like I was doing like my stint because I'm a teacher at the School of the Art Institute of Chicago, and I went into an administrator's office, and her partner, Andy Falkowski, who's a painter in town in Chicago, who's an amazing painter. And he like had this incredible germ circle painting in her office. I'm like, I want that, like I don't pay for art generally.
Wow. Yeah.
But I was ready to go.
That's amazing. I mean, not to try to be too thematic, but this is actually kind of interesting, because I always felt like where I started disliking rap music was when I felt like, oh, I could, the powers that be were forcing me and my people to only like rap music. Like the guys in my group, we all liked all sorts of stuff, Germs, whatever, that whole thing, Bob Dylan, Tom Waits, jazz, everything. And so, there was like a lot of pressures in the late 90s, early 2000s to zero in. And I think we felt a lot of freedom when we were like, oh, okay, we don't just have to be in this little pigeonhole place.
Well, listen, I mean, the both gems that y'all just dropped, and I know you're gonna drop some more gems in our conversation here, because like that's exactly what I was thinking. I know you're two professorial brains on these teacher streets will definitely tie a theme somehow, but I just love to geek out in your space, right? So like, to not go too far on a tangent, I was hanging out with my dad a couple days ago, and I just started playing some tunes on the app of my choice. I think it was Amazon Music. I started putting on some like American Graffiti soundtrack because I know he loved that. And then like some Bobby Darin, play similar music, whatever, right? And he's like, "Wow, you're jamming out." I'm like, "I know what you look like, Dad." Anyhow, to not go too deep in the rabbit hole, once upon a time, 104.3 used to play Dick Biondi slash 50s jams, right? And
Yeah.
now it's so crushing to think that now they're playing like 90s rap and 90s hip hop. And I'm like, I don't know how I feel about that. You know what I'm saying? Like, was that an accident? Was it on purpose?
Uh, I I just think about how there's no oldies station, period.
Yeah.
You know, that's I'm like, what is oldies to our kids? Because they'll, I mean, the 50s music, 60s music, I think has a longer lasting impact than 80s and 90s music, but that's basically their oldies. Yeah, it's very unfortunate.
No, but I
Facts.
associate that shit also with like kind of beloved. I again coming from LA, like beloved LA street culture, you know, like that kind of 50s music. Like my parents, when I would watch them, the most affectionate, they're listening to that stuff, you know, cheek to cheek with their butts out dancing, you know, as like 60-year-olds, 70-year-olds. And I think that just warms my heart. I mean, those are like the old school people, you know, it's like car shows, bouncing, you know, that's it's like that's what that reminds me of, these kind of like gatherings, right? The way of
Yeah.
like those remind me of community gatherings, you know, parties at the park, right? Like, hey, Sifuentes, come down. We got a 6-pack. Let's go to the park. I'm like, why are we going to the freaking park, man? You know, like there's plenty of other places to go in the world. But we're just gonna go drink and eat some fast food and like hang out at the park. But like those that kind of like oldies really much more reminds me of like a particular generation and a celebration of a kind of community, you know, that I really you know, aspired to with my friends and family.
Yeah, I mean, that's where it's at. I mean, like y'all are sharing these stories right now, and we're not diving deep into the rapper hip hop bag, but like I can't I can't not mention like my mind is exploding because like it's all about for me like rap and hip hop is all about the culture, it's all about the street scene, it's all about the same exact stuff you're talking about. And I can't help but think when I'm giving my dad a ride and he's thinking about his like greased lightning, like lightning or like leather jacket and greased hair days, like it's not the same, right? Like we're still talking the same language. It's like you approach music, you approach the culture at a certain time in your life, and then you just kind of find yourself. So like for me, I constantly love like hearing other people's stories that are sort of hip hop and rap related. And I know you both have a lot of like war rap stories in general coming up. So you know that's I definitely I'm definitely blessed to be in both of your spaces, to be honest. It's just awesome. So the other thing I thought worth mentioning, obviously Adam kind of like alluded to it, you know, you had this rap collective that you were part of in the
Mm.
was it like the Minnesota scene, right? The Twin Cities?
Yeah,
Oddjobs.
yeah. I mean, my short story is I was lucky to be in the right place at the right time. When I was, I guess, yeah, 14 or 15, the Minneapolis hip hop scene really started taking off with Rhymesayers, Slug, Beyond, Micronauts, Script Abstract Pack, Idea. That was sort of the Rhymesayers collective. Then me and my friends, we were sort of the younger kids, and those older guys really took us in. I mean, it was a small world, and all of a sudden they put Minneapolis on the map. So when I moved to New York a few years later, people really knew about the Minneapolis scene. All my guys, yeah, we were a group called Oddjobs, moved out to New York a few years after I did, um, connected with that whole scene there, which was like the Def Jux era, Cannibal Ox, Adam's Family, Juggernauts, all of that. And from there, yeah, again, it was just right place, right time. Minneapolis had this positive reputation. We were from there. Our Minneapolis guys took us in. The New York people took us in because we were from Minneapolis, which was really weird. And then, yeah, we went by Oddjobs for a few years, toured with everyone, and then kind of yeah, felt really pigeonholed, and we were like this perpetual opening act. I mean, we played with all of our idols, but we're always the openers, and we're always kind of doing a version of the music we liked. And then when we got more untethered from hip hop, we said, let's do what we want. And we changed the name to Kill the Vultures, and lost all of our fans, but started making music that I think I was just immediately more proud of, even though now 20 years after, like the drums album in your background, now even though I used to cringe at that album because we were just doing too much, now I can appreciate that. So that's my story. That's my trajectory.
No, I appreciate you diving into that and giving us the origins, because I know that can be a whole conversation and podcast on its own. But like, obviously my hip hop head brain is just, blowing up with nostalgia and geek excitement. But it's interesting you said like now you've more embraced that sort of formative album for other hip hop fans, because it's like those aging hip hop fans or rap acts that are willing to kind of embrace their age and not, I don't want to say like not afraid to play the hits, but like not afraid to feel like, rap is just a young man's game. They kind of like have been sort of taking advantage of reheating that nostalgia for other folks, I guess.
Right. Yeah, and then just like one more short thing. The reason why I have complex feelings towards the drums album is we moved from Minneapolis to New York, and this was going to be our big album. Oh, these guys from the Midwest, they moved to New York, and we put all this work and money into it. And then honestly, sales wise, it was a flop. It was a huge disappointment. And it was like, oh, these guys moved to New York. They thought they were big time, and then it didn't really hit. And I think that's what immediately made me kind of feel like, I don't want to talk about that album. And then 20 years after it came out, started hearing from people who are like, oh yeah, that was like a big album for people in the Midwest or in this underground scene or whatever. And I re-listened to it, and I was like, okay, I can be proud of this now. So that's my complex relationship with that album.
No, the life of a tortured artist. I dig it. I just love to hear those stories. So sort of start a segue to Roberto, because like another common thread I feel like is the performance aspect of anything, right? So like rap and hip hop is not the exception. And I remember Adam, you said in an interview a while ago, I think you said something along the lines of like, when you saw KRS perform, or either you caught this story from somewhere, he would like perform with a jacket, and certain songs he would take off the jacket, right, as a way to transition. And my hip hop head brain was like loving that story, because like KRS One is literally my ride or die. Like he's my number one MC of all time. But I bring that up because like I know Roberto has plenty of performances to draw from, as far as I don't know, getting the crowd going, getting the crowd on the edge of their seat, or gut wrenching stuff, as it were.
Yeah, well, just like my background is not as integrated as Adam, except that, like we fans, right? I'm just a fan, right? Like I'm not a player. I'm a performance artist. I come from a performance background. Every performance artist's goal really is to like be a rock star, hip hop star. Like my main goal as a performance artist always was to like have a mosh pit in front of me and fucking stage jive into the crowd and have them carry me around while I did my stuff. And that's kind of really the trajectory I took in my sort of music upbringing in LA, was much more rock punk origins of hip hop, you know. I mean, not LA, but Bad Brains kind of people, you know, Rage Against the Machine and you know, of course Eazy-E and sort of like OG gangster rap was kind of like where I came up and the stuff that I was looking at the whole time I was growing up. And like all I ever freaking did, which was my creation as a performance artist, was go see shows. You know, I would just go see rock shows Monday through Friday. You know, we'd start at Al's Bar in LA for Monday Night Football with all the rockers. Just we watch Monday Night Football with free beer because in LA that starts at 5, right? And then after that, shows all night long. So that's excuse me, where I came
You
up.
sound like you're recovering from another show you came from last night or something.
Yeah, well, I just came from performing in Miami at Miami Art Week, which with like this bloodletting performance and some other freaks for sure. But people like, you know, perform like crossovers like Vaginal Davis, right? Who had this band in the 80s and 90s called Cholita, you know, which I happen to have my cassette tape from.
Uh-oh. He's
Right,
got it
like
at the
an
ready.
OG, like paper. Well, it's just I have all my stuff near me for some reason, but like, you know, with my favorite song, Chinga Tu Madre, you know,
Uh-oh,
which
wait a
is
minute.
like some great like Vaginal Davis rock songs. I think of performance artists like Karen Finley, kind of like doing spoken word. I think of the Last Poets as the originators who like crossed over between hip hop and performance. So I have a like but like again, that just influenced my own performance work. I'm not like a rapper per se. You know, I come from this like punk era, you know, but my stories that I've been telling my dear friend have been much more about my sort of peripheral experiences also, like
Well,
working and growing up in the music video scene in LA
Yes,
uh,
sir.
and sort of like peripherally experiencing weird stuff on the sidelines.
wait, I
Weirder
have
than
a
you performing with the
question.
leeches? Go for it.
Well, I want to hear about the leeches, of course, but here's a question I have for Roberto. So I always romanticized this thing that I would hear about in New York, which was the mixing of like Blondie and Grandmaster Flash and CBGB's, Ramones, Television, Talking Heads, whatever, rap guys with the punk guys, downtown stuff. Was that happening in LA as well? Because we always hear about that mixing happening in New York, but yeah, what was it like in LA?
Ab no, absolutely. And like when I was coming up in the late 80s, 90s, right? That was absolutely ended up being the scene that was happening between kind of like queer, punk, crazy perspective. So you had like Ron Athey had Club Fuck in LA, which happened at the Scream Club and happened at downtown, you know, and you had all sorts of different people like Vaginal Davis and alike. You know, Ron Athey at the time was a major journalist and also music culture, pop cultural journalist at the LA Weekly, right, which was like their alternative
Yeah.
weekly paper in Los Angeles. So like he was not only like a producer of events, but also like a major critic and writer of events. You know, and all those people are coming together, even from the north of the West Coast. You know, you had,
Hmm.
you know, Jello Biafra and Leaving from Fear coming down, and all these people were talking and rapping and, you know, like, and crossing over, you know, but it was really in LA, I would say the more vibrant scene or like a vibrant scene that I was a part of, I should say, was much more like queer punk and punk rap, you know, and rock rap
Mhm.
rather than kind of uh like city rap, right?
Yeah.
So like that crossover would happen, but the scenes were a bit different. You know,
Hmm.
my sort of
Hmm.
crossover was much more about kind of like queer punk, fetish, rock, and rap, if
Interesting.
that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
that was happening like in every venue, you know.
Yeah. Huh. I like that term, city rap. Like that's like a new, yeah. That's like a
I mean, I
whole
don't want to
thing.
say
Yeah.
like, I mean, it's all a city, right? But I
Yeah.
don't want to say like inner city or urban or any of this other crap. You
Right.
know, I would just say like, because I could say demographically in LA, like people farther south or whatever, like because of course LA has pockets, you know, because it's so dispersed.
Yeah.
So, but like, you know, there's definitely traveling happening. And I think that happens a lot also in the industry, music industry. Like we are governed by our borders also, right? And so like even within a city, different movements happen, you know, across different streets, you know. Like a different movement is going to happen in the north side versus the south side versus the west side, across Western, across, you know, La Cienega, you know, if you're in Pico Union, it's going to be different than Hollywood, you know. And like, yeah, like the punk scene, you go to these really redneck zones of LA to Ventura County and Long Beach, you know, and Long Beach, you get like a super redneck racist punk rock scene, which is happening next door to Snoop Dogg, you
Crazy.
know. And so like those were the weird things that were happening in
Yeah.
these scenes. And in all events, you got the police come in and waiting for you for the concert to come out with police batons out to just beat you on your way to the car, right? And so that was like a regular occurrence after concerts. Like the police are just out there waiting, and like you're literally running or getting beaten on the way to your car.
Crazy.
But it was fun,
So
you know. You're a
Roberto,
teenager.
yeah, all in fun, all in fun. I feel like Roberto, every time you talk, I have to like put some sort of a parental advisory logo in the corner of your
Oh,
screen.
sorry.
But you keep it 100, baby. You keep it 100.
No,
I
no,
don't want
no.
anything less.
Hey, I
I
have a
don't want
kid.
that.
I'll stop cursing. No problem.
Yeah, let me remind you. No, but you invoke Snoop Dogg, right? So like some of those periphery stories you've shared with me, I think on the set of some of these music videos, right? Like was there any of those that you're interested to divulge on?
Yeah, sure. Like I've had a, you know, like so I'm a performance artist, right? And so for most of my life, my performance art career, like from my early 20s, you know, through my 30s. So like for a couple of decades, what I did was music videos in LA and music videos and commercials, right? And so like it was awesome because, you know, it's like to support my art career, my buddies who were like hardcore filmmaking people would just be like, okay, Roberto, you got your performance, you go do it. And when you come back, we'll hook you up with a gig. And they were really supported my life, you know, like wholeheartedly. All they wanted was like crazy stories from the road. And all my performance people wanted were crazy stories from Hollywood. So like I mean the one story that I've told you from Snoop Dogg that was like particularly a crack up, I mean just a short stupid story. Like we were doing some video from a German band that he was like featured in, right? Had like 2 minutes of rap or like 30 seconds of rapping in this German band. They'd already done the video. We just recreated the whole thing in Hollywood. I'm just a lighting guy, right? I'm just like a guy on the side. So I'm not creating anything. I'm just plugging things in and pointing the light at the right person. And like we were there, we set the whole thing up. We're waiting for Snoop Dogg, and he's like hours late, right? Oh shit, man. Oh, our shoot. Snoop Dogg's coming, you know, and he gets there and there's no Popeye's chicken, right? So they have to send like a PA like hours into LA traffic to go get Popeye's chicken. Meanwhile, Snoop Dogg and his whole crew, which has been supplied with like a bunch of Xboxes and more weed than you can imagine, is just like in the green room smoking up and playing Xbox. And then finally the chicken comes, they eat their chicken, and we're talking like hours and hours of LA movie time. And then finally it was like this sweet, and then we're just waiting, like, okay, well, we're just getting paid to do nothing. We're just, and we're also getting high just by sitting in the green room, you know, and we're like waiting. And then Snoop Dogg comes out at one point when he's all done. He just looks at us with these like, with his like slide eyes, right? And he's all, okay, let's make some magic. Then he goes out there and it's like
amazing
20 seconds of rapping, you know. And a whole
amazing
Hollywood production. So funny.
Wow.
Yeah, but he
no,
had a long history
no
of that.
brown M&Ms. He wanted his
But
chicken, basically.
nah, but like nobody cares because like he's Snoop Dogg, you know, and he just like he rules LA and he's just like a super personable guy. So like even low level construction workers like myself were just like proud to be there and happy to see Snoop Dogg do his thing.
Wow.
I dig that. I dig that. I mean, like, so like being that you've had all these experiences and all these stories and both of y'all, right? Because I feel like live performances is having a moment, and it's probably having a longer moment than I fail to admit. But like, where I'm going with this is like, you know, folks are like flocking to theaters now just to watch live performances, right? And it's no question that these live performance prices are going up and they keep skyrocketing. But yeah, I'm just wondering what y'all think about the at odds experience of like sort of like a closeted musician that's trying to get out their feelings and get out their thoughts and just kind of like have an open page diary to the world, as opposed to the performing artist, right? Which is sort of like the conversation with art and commerce in general too. But I mean, it just fascinates me that, you know, like the live performance has to be a key and you always have to think about the fans in mind. Yet some of this music is not necessarily made with the fans, you know, perspective, so to speak, you know.
One interesting thing related to that is I was reading about how these older rap acts, like when Nas and Wu-Tang did their tour, it was selling out. And then the newer guys who I like Playboy Cardi or Lil Durk or whatever, were actually having to cancel some shows. And maybe that's just okay. Wu-Tang's audience are grown people who have saved up money for expensive tickets or whatever. But it is interesting how, yeah, not only is whatever live performance having a moment, but all this stuff came back really hard. Like these, yeah, acts from the 80s and 90s are selling out arenas, which I'm very happy about.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I agree. And then like Roberto, when you're talking about like you were invoking Method Man earlier, or not, you weren't, you were invoking the image of somebody stage diving, right? And riding and like surfing the crowd. Like for me, that was totally a hip hop experience and a Wu Easter egg because like Method Man has been known to do that on plenty of occasion when I've seen him like House of Blues. So for me, I always feel like there's no difference when I'm thinking of different musical genres. But I'm always
Yeah,
fascinated.
I never told you I did like a Wu-Tang video in New York.
No, get out.
Crazy.
Yeah. I mean, when I say I did it, I don't want your viewers to get the impression that I did anything, but like go there and plug some lights in and stuff, you know. But I blocked that one out of my brain because it was just like, because new making a video in New York was just brutal. Because making music videos in general is just like, you know, 16, 18, 20 hours, you're fighting for your pay, they're trying not to pay you. You know, you're getting like sub equipment, you're getting electrocuted. Like I was on an Eazy-E video, speaking of hip hop, like on the 20th story of a high-rise building, this video called Neighborhood Sniper, right? I'm on the 20th floor of this high-rise building on a 16-foot ladder by the edge of the building, getting electrocuted by the stand, you know, like pointing it at Eazy-E while a helicopter is flying around, you know, so like making music videos is not a glamorous thing for like the people doing it, you know. But the funniest thing in that video was like we were in South Central shooting and we're all sitting on like a little fence in a neighborhood and I'm sitting there with all my like you know, all my, let me say, Anglo friends, coworkers, eating some lunch, you know, and then like a car bumping and thumping comes by slowly. You know, I'm just like, all right, looking at him. And then I look to my side and all my friends have jumped over the side of the fence and are hiding behind the fence because they're like worried about getting drive-by, you know.
Oh my God.
But I think in terms of liveness for me right now, really I think I mean, in my own performance art, live art world, that's really an essential thing at the moment, you know. So, you know, I appreciate musicians, I appreciate people going to see things. I think liveness is something that's being, you know, thought of much more seriously and critically right now, whereas before it was kind of understood. But since we had years where liveness was not part of our lives, now people are taking uh, the event as a much more integral thing, because we spent several years on YouTube, you know, and on Zoom. Here we are now. But like right now, we're thinking like, I want to go, I want to be with my community, I want to see what that feels like again, which is where music comes from, right? Is about us all getting together and like moving and sweating together and being in conjunction, you know, and that's what performance is. And right now we're in that space.
Yeah, that was the number one thing when COVID happened. That came to mind. I was like, oh, when this is over, I'm just gonna see live music all the time. And like actually, yeah, I remember the last show I saw before COVID was Billy Woods at Subterranean. And it's weird because like we didn't know that was gonna be the last show. And then I had tickets for Shabaka Hutchings, saxophonist, but wanted to see forever. That was the first show I had tickets for that got canceled. And I was like thinking about both of those things for like the the rest of 2020. And as soon as I got my shots, yeah, went to Constellation to see some jazz. And now it's like the one thing I do for myself. I'm like buying tickets all the time. I'll go, you know, by myself or whatever. But I'm like, you never know when things are gonna close up. And yeah, so I'm embracing the liveness. Absolutely.
I dig it. I love those stories because it's kind of like I grew up obviously in the tape and CD era. So like, you know, Roberto showing off some tapes. Like I probably have some stashed away here. And obviously vinyls have been having a moment too. So yeah, like with music being so at the ready on the YouTubes and the Spotify's and whatnot, it definitely makes it a bigger deal when there's some tangibleness going on. I I definitely wanted to pry on Roberto because I haven't been able to talk to you in a bit, man. Like, so speaking of moments, the local museum, is that what you're talking about with the leeches? Because I know you've always had a collection of leeches, but was there somehow you were able to kind of have a synergy with all of that you had going on the leash front?
Well, locally, if we're talking about Chicago,
Right.
I
But I
hope
know
to
you
be
travel
working
too,
with,
but go for it.
yeah. I mean, talking about Chicago, I'm
Just tell
hopefully in
us
the
about
near
the leeches.
future. All
Just
Yeah.
right.
talk about the leeches. Yeah, yeah.
All right. I got 14 now swimming around. They just arrived yesterday. They're halal, by the way.
Uh-oh, here it is.
They were
I
only
dig it.
fed on halal blood in their farming process. So
Wow.
they can be used in any sorts of rituals, you know. I use them as a in my performance, you know, my performance is really about healing and really deals with like violence on black and brown bodies and police violence. I use the leeches as a means of sort of redrawing wounds that the police have inflicted on black and brown bodies using autopsy photos of various famous and not so famous perpetrations by the police. And so I layer
Sure.
my body with leeches and use the leeches as a drawing tool and bleed from them. And also like tears of blood and other things like that. But recently I was in Miami this past weekend for Miami Art Week and the big art fairs to do that performance at a mainly Latino based gallery called Edge Zones, which had a big day of performance making, and so I did it there. So I still have a little bit of my hickeys
Some battle scars. Uh-oh.
from my collaborators, who I call the Kardashians because they all look alike and they're all bloodsuckers. You know, so I don't want to give them individual names, but they are my pets, right? So I got to call them something. I just call them the Kardashians. So that's where that comes from. But yeah, we were speaking of, you know, in terms of music, we were there with the famous Rat Bastard, who is a well-known noise musician from the Miami area.
Really?
And also has worked with many performance artists, including Ron Athey and other kind of extreme artists making work. So look up Rap Bastard, of course, you know. And there were a few other musicians, no rappers, unfortunately, but yeah, it was nuts and a lot of fun.
That's awesome. I'm glad you're doing that work. I'm glad you're spreading those messages that needs to be heard and those stories. And I mean, the imagery of a leech. I think everyone's had a leech in their life, whether they're actually an actual leech or not. So, you know, why not? Why not? Why not use that as a platform? So yeah, I mean, like just you know, just loving being in both of your spaces here. Like obviously me and my podcast co-conspirator, like we're all about, you know, rap and hip hop. And again, we're always like constantly like fascinated by all the different crossovers, like with music, with fashion, with cinema, just, you know, just everything as it were. um and yeah, I mean, like the thing that kind of throws me off now is like, yeah, is the music kind of losing its sort of edge, because now it's kind of turning into different things. And I know probably punk had the same type of um I don't want to say like commentary, but probably had the same sort of like feelings that, you know, it was like when you have a melting pot of different musics happening, right? So like rap is now like evolving and turning to different things right now. So I'm just I'm just looking to try to embrace it, you know, embrace the change.
I actually have a kind of a hot take, which is that I actually think the last 5 years have been the most exciting time for rap music since the golden era. And I always think about like there are three important years. This is a working theory that we could get into more if you want, but
Sure.
I think there are three important years in rap music after Run DMC, which is 1988, 1991, and 1994. And I even like ask people like, are you a like which of those years is you? You know, are you a 91 person or 88 person or 94 person? And then after that, there's basically just, I don't know, not like the music got bad, but it was just kind of stagnant. There's a lot of good stuff. You know, I think Jason, you and I were very big into that early 2000s underground scene, which sort of felt like, or it felt like at the time very exciting.
Yeah.
I think now the past 4 or 5 years is actually the first time that I felt, you know, because you used the term lost its edge. I actually think the edge is back for the first time since 94, which is Wu-Tang, Illmatic, Ready to Die. I mean, Wu-Tang was, I guess, 93 technically, but so I'm very excited. I'm like, and I think it's gone beyond rap music. I just that's another reason why I'm seeing a lot of shows, because I'm like, wow, these like the young groups that are out right now are like incredible. They make me excited in the way that I felt when I was, yeah, hearing those 88, 91, 94 albums.
No, I'd love to hear that. I mean, that's definitely a good way to hear how it's been repurposed. Like obviously me approaching the music as a youngling, like I always felt like there's some angst to it. And it's very interested when Roberto was sort of dropping like the street, you know, like moniker on some of this music. Cause I myself sort of felt like at odds, like my life isn't always about the streets, but when I'm trying to recreate this music for myself, like, do I have to commentate on the streets? I guess I have to. Why not? Why not do it? And I have done it. But like, yeah, I mean, to your point, Adam, it's like if the edge is always there, how is it being done? If it's not leaning heavy on the message, which is how I usually approach rap, it doesn't always have to be about the message, right? It could be about the sonic intensity of it all.
Yeah, it's I think that's the thing that I'm noticing. It's about that energy. That early 2000s period that you and I embraced, that was very heavy on lyrics. And a lot of that I still enjoy, like MF Doom or Juggernauts. And a lot of that I'm like, too many words. And so what I like about, I mean, I'll just throw out some names of people, even though these are amazing rappers as well. Like this guy Maxo, this guy Mike, Pink Sifu, Too Rich Benji, actually a lot of California adjacent people for whatever reason.
Yeah.
Even though they're amazing rappers and the words are there, you know, you're talking about the message, it's actually more of the energy. And I think what I was always seeking is actually punk energy, which is what I got out of the 88, 91, and 94 albums. Yeah, when I think about the stuff that I was into in the early 2000s, a lot of that to me hasn't held up because it was almost too much about the words and not enough about the energy. And that's what I'm seeking. Energy and vision. Actually, those are the two things. I mean, those are abstract concepts, but it's like, you know, what the congressman said about pornography. It's like I know it when I see it, you know, or feel it.
Yeah, and it's definitely no mistake that some of the stuff you're talking about being Cali adjacent, because like with the rave culture, with the festival culture, you know, just with the live music culture, like a lot of that feeds into it, and they kind of play off each other in a lot of different ways.
Does that play into, you think, Adam, like this kind of like post-COVID, like fervor, right?
Probably
like breaking out.
Probably, I think, yeah, because these are guys that I started hearing about right before COVID. And then post-COVID, I'm like, the amount of good music that's coming out. Yeah, maybe it was like being kept at bay or something. But yeah, the energy and it's interesting when I say punk energy, like a lot of these guys, their shows, the music is very jazzy. It doesn't sound like punk music, but
Right.
there's a edge there. I mean, I guess like whatever people could hear punk energy and kind of blue. Um, and so it's those guys, and it's also like last few shows I saw Lil Yachty and Lil Uzi Vert, so the popular guys too. I'm always kind of interested in like what are 16-year-olds losing their minds about, and to go to those shows, I'm like in the back, but they're so on edge. At the Lil Yachty show, which was at the Aragon, the warm up DJ knew what he was doing. He would play Bohemian Rhapsody, Smells Like Teen Spirit, and these kids were so ready to lose their minds that they were, you know, preemptively losing their minds to Nirvana and Queen. And yeah, that I think that's what I'm seeking. That. Yeah, and it is a post-COVID cathartic release as well.
No, and I love that you brought up the DJ element, right? Because Adam, I know you also mess around on the DJ scene with your own equipment, but like I don't want to dismiss like the DJ boom too, right? Because it's kind of like for a while, DJs in their own right were just, you know, selling out arenas or just rocking shows on their own and just figuring out the right needle drop and the right way to kind of insert it, whether it was a rave or not.
Yeah, that's everything. I still, I'm like semi-retired rapper, but I still consider myself a DJ. And actually I'm trying to do it more. I actually bought better equipment. That was one kind of post-COVID purchase. So we'll see what happens there.
Looking forward to it. Looking forward to it.
That's
That'd
awesome.
be amazing. Yeah. So what about I definitely feel it with my kids because they're 8 and 12 and they sort of understand the hip hop elder statesmen, and they also kind of have a pulse on what's going on. I'm curious, Roberto, what's going on? Do you see any punk-esque like vibes with your daughter, or is there anything kind of trickling through or taking different turns that you haven't expected?
No, my girl is much more interested in like radical new experimental Korean music, like
Wow.
AG2R that performed with my wife's and my daughter's Pungmul group, Korean traditional drumming protest group at the Skirball Center in LA, and they came out from Korea and played. And so my daughter, like, she basically sings along with either choir music from her Catholic school or like radical Korean traditional fusion music, which she loves, and of course hip hop and all, and K-pop and more of that stuff. She's not really into the hip hop thing, but we just let our kids go, and they'll tell us what the hell is going on right out there.
Yeah. I always think you get lucky when your kid likes some good music, because when people are like, oh yeah, my kid is listening to the rare B-side of, whatever, James Chance from the No Wave scene. I'm like, no, your kid is not listening to that. And so you get lucky when your kid does get obsessed with something good. Yeah, it's like, actually, I should say, I'll take this time to say, I think we were very inspired by Roberto's parenting style, because we actually met each other when our first children were in the womb. That was the first time we met. Our wives were at the same party, very pregnant. And then, so we kind of like grew up as parents together. And the one thing I remember, this is the inspiration part, was when Mega, my wife, was like, yeah, Aram and Roberto, they just take Nara everywhere. They're just out with her all the time. And we're just like, oh, you can do that. And that was actually very shortly, like little kids. And then it was like, oh yeah, you don't have to be at home. You just take the child everywhere. Just go. And that was like, that's like a small concrete thing, but just that philosophy was like very freeing. Um, and then it's, yeah, the same with music. You just let them go.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
No, we like, even to like weird effed up performance events, we just take the kid. I don't even ask if it's family friendly anymore. Because like after the day we went to this performance at Defibrillator, where there was this naked trans person who had pens pierced all over their body, asking people to write or draw. I think she was like 5 at the time, wanted to go up and draw on this trans person's naked body. And we're like, go for it, whatever. And then my mom happened to be in town, and she's like nicely sitting on her chair. Like, oh my God, we're just
You
like,
got three
whatever.
generations.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love it.
Yeah, you just gotta. But yeah, like I have no doubt that I'll be following my kid to concerts more than the other way around.
I
Although
respect
we
that. I
just came from
respect
the
that.
Christmas Carol last night, so
Yeah,
How'd that
you
go?
gotta embrace it all. Absolutely.
yeah, exactly.
Well, I'm definitely not gonna be so hard and judge myself if for some reason I actually have my older one attend a Kanye performance, because I asked him recently, "What's your top 3 rappers?" And he did say Kanye, Bad Bunny, and I forget there was another rapper that's escaping me.
It's hard,
Oh,
isn't it?
Eminem, of course. Eminem. Yeah,
It's
those are his top
hard.
3. But
Uh,
it's super cringeworthy because like I'm not sure if y'all
mm.
caught, like, Ye performed earlier this week with like a black KKK hood to kind of help promote the album that was supposed to come out today. And my podcast co-host was like, it didn't come out. It's not coming out. And yeah, true to form, it didn't drop today at all.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
No, my school wanted to give him an honorary degree, and I think it happened, and then they rescinded it, you know.
Yeah, right.
And they wanted him to teach, and there was a whole group of professors who are like, it's probably not a great idea, That was
No thanks
before
for the
everything
academic
really hit the fan, but
No thanks for the academic 3-year-old. So he was
But
literally charging, I think it was at Vegas last night or midnight or
yeah.
whatever it was, to kind of like say, all right, the album's not coming, but you can watch us live for $2,000 or you can stream it for 2 stacks. I'm like, wait a minute, how is it the same price? But that's yay. That's yay being yay.
it's
I mean,
yeah. Someone described it as the old Onion headline of Marilyn Manson now going door to door trying to shock people, like which even Marilyn Manson, I think there was something more authentic to him. I think, yeah, this whole phase of I'm opting out of it. Yeah, it's unfortunate.
True indeed. So yeah, and I know we're sort of rounding out the time because I actually gotta hop on to something else in a moment. But bro, like both of y'all definitely covered the victory lap as far as a lot of the topics I wanted to cover. Like we could definitely probably come to this conversation another point. But yeah, I mean, has there been any other final thoughts that y'all had? I actually was always curious, Adam, like before I knew the connection with you and Roberto, like when I heard of your partner's name Mega, I was like, that's like so hip hop. Like what's that? Is that the actual name? Is that a moniker? What
Yeah.
is that?
Yeah, I think no, it's her name. Yeah. Well, like my last name is Waits, and it's good that
Yes,
she
sir.
didn't take my last name. It's too close to megawatts. But yeah. No, I'll have to tell her that her middle name means cloud, which I actually think is
Oh, okay.
cool. There's something in hip hop to me about that.
Right, right.
But yeah. Wait, no. No, I think sorry, mega means cloud. That's what I meant.
Oh,
So there's
gotcha.
something hip hop to that as well. But I never put it together until right
That's
now.
dope. No, I mean, because you and Roberto dropping these names, or even Aram too. I'm like, are y'all naming a hip hop MC? Who is this? I never met this person.
Yeah, we'll all connect one of these days. But yeah, no, I actually my closing thought is I've been really thinking about this 88, 91, 94 thing. And I always considered myself a 91 person, but
Okay.
I think that's because I was just a tad too young in 88. Like 88, I remember hearing stuff around, but just revisiting everything that came out that year, Bismarcky, Public Enemy, Big Daddy Kane, all of that. That's basically what I'm seeking in life right now. 1988 rap music. And so that is my closing thought. I would just like revisit everything that came out that year. I don't
Hey,
know.
I'm gonna pass it off to Roberto, but to riff on that really quickly,
Yeah.
like again, you knew like me being in that 93, 94 pocket of like Ink Street hip hop, like Wu-Tang obviously is my ride or die collective, and Tribe also. But the at odds conversation with like Tribe and De La Soul, and admittedly this year with De La finally hitting the streams, I was able to catch that moment with my kids, and they both
Oh,
more
amazing.
gravitated to the De La sound, and I had to revisit
Yes.
it and all the Prince Paul like production from the first 3 albums. Like, how did I miss how rich this is with the skits, with the bars?
Yeah.
Like, I always wanted to like lump them into this like glossy like Jurassic 5 category, which again, no shade on them, but like I
Right.
definitely didn't unpack like the brilliance that De La Soul always brought.
Yeah, man. That's a whole I had the same experience. Yeah, when our kids got into 3 is the magic number. I mean, of course,
Yes.
at Schoolhouse Rock. And yeah, so we could say more about that.
Yeah, I was
Sure,
still
sure.
like I think most of, I mean, we're talking about a lot of this stuff, but like a lot of my sort of hip hop crossover, right? Like I talk a lot about punk, right? I talk a lot about, And I think and rock punk like Rage Against the Machine, you know, but also like Cypress Hill, Lighter Shade of Brown, you know, like
amazing.
that was really my kind of like looking, you know, at a lot of Chicano rap, I have to say, you know, was really the
Actually,
place that I landed in rap music.
I mean, we could go on and on, but I want to say Cypress Hill, and this is something I'm seeking as well. That was the first time a rap group, I heard it and it was kind of scary. Like there are other rap groups that were trying to be scary, like whatever gangster rap groups or then horrorcore rap groups, but I was actually I was scared. I don't know why. And that is something I'm seeking. I think that is something that's missing. I'm not fearful of any music I hear
Right.
now. And it's not just because I'm older. But I'm envious that you were in LA and who you are during that explosion. Just amazing.
Just a young person with a ticket.
Looking for that next ride.
Although I did perform on stage with Rage Against the Machine one time, and that was a huge failure, dude, but lovely. Yeah, because like what do kids want to hear, like performance art poetry before like Rage comes on? You know, they don't care. Nobody cares what you're doing before the band comes on. You
If you
know?
say you open for them, I'm with it. I'll co-sign that you open for them.
But I was even laughing the whole time. It was like nobody gives a shit. Let's stop.
Well, look, I give a shit. I definitely give a shit about you too. For anyone who has tuned in or will tune in the future, I hope they don't think that this is like a dad pod reminiscing over days of yore for the classic stations, because there is a hybrid element to all this classic rock and classic hip hop, and you know, right now reggaeton, which I guess eventually will be classic reggaeton. Who knows? But yeah, all these moments mean something to me. So I appreciate you both just waxing poetic on all of them.
Good to see you guys.
Yeah, good to see you, Adam. Good to see you,
We'll,
Jason.
we'll chat in person soon.